Dishwasher fired for speaking to Messi, then he surprises her with a job. The kitchen of the upscale hotel buzzed with its usual rhythm, pots clanged, steam hissed, and voices barked orders across the room. In the far corner, Lucia stood at the industrial sink, her hands deep in soapy water as she scrubbed plates with mechanical precision. The job was grueling, but it was steady work, and that was all that mattered to her. Every day, she reminded herself that this job was a stepping stone, a way to keep the lights on and food on the table for her family. Lucia had started working at the hotel nearly a year ago, taking whatever position was available after her father fell ill. The bills piled up quickly, and as the eldest of 3 siblings, she had stepped into the role of provider without hesitation. It wasn't glamorous, and she often came home exhausted, her hands raw from hours of scrubbing dishes, but it was a sacrifice she was willing to make for the people she loved. Tonight was busier than usual. The hotel was hosting an exclusive dinner for some of the most famous athletes in the world, including Lionel Messi. The news had spread like wildfire among the staff, and everyone was abuzz with excitement. For most of them, Messi wasn't just a soccer player, he was a legend, an icon whose name was synonymous with greatness. Lucia, however, tried to focus on her work. She wasn't someone who got starstruck easily. To her, Messi was just another guest, albeit an extraordinary one. What really occupied her thoughts was the endless stream of plates piling up in front of her. She worked tirelessly, her arms moving in a rhythm that felt almost robotic. Every now and then, she would glance at the clock, silently willing the hours to pass faster. Lucia, the head chef's voice cut through the clamor of the kitchen. She turned to see him gesturing toward her. "We need you to clear the tables in the dining hall. We're running short on servers tonight." Lucia hesitated. She rarely left the kitchen during her shifts and felt more comfortable working behind the scenes. But the chef's tone left no room for argument. She quickly dried her hands and grabbed a tray, stepping out into the dimly lit dining hall. The atmosphere in the hall was a stark contrast to the chaos of the kitchen. Soft music played in the background, and the clinking of glasses and murmured conversations filled the air. The tables were adorned with elegant white tablecloths and flickering candles, and the scent of gourmet dishes lingered in the room. Lucia kept her head down as she moved from table to table, clearing plates and refilling glasses. It wasn't until she approached the center of the room that she noticed him. Messi sat with a small group of people, his demeanor relaxed and unassuming. He was dressed simply, a stark contrast to the opulence around him, and his smile was warm as he chatted with those at his table. For a moment, Lucia froze. She had seen him countless times on TV, his name shouted by commentators and fans alike, but seeing him in person was different. He looked normal, approachable. Lucia shook herself out of her daze and continued her task, careful not to linger near his table. But as she bent down to collect a plate, a voice stopped her. "Excuse me." She looked up to find Messi himself addressing her. His tone was polite, almost hesitant, as if he didn't want to disrupt her work. "Yes," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Could I get another glass of water, please?" he asked, his smile kind. Lucia nodded quickly, her cheeks flushing. "Of course. Right away." She hurried to the kitchen, her heart pounding in her chest. It wasn't just that Messi had spoken to her, it was the way he had done it, as if she were the most important person in the room at that moment. There was no arrogance, no entitlement, just genuine kindness. When she returned with the water, Messi thanked her warmly, his eyes meeting hers for a brief moment. "Thank you for your hard work," he said, and there was something in his tone that made her believe he truly meant it. Lucia mumbled a quick "you're welcome" and moved on, her mind racing. She couldn't remember the last time someone had acknowledged her like that, let alone someone as famous as Messi. It was a small gesture, but it carried a weight she couldn't quite explain. As the night went on, Lucia continued her work, occasionally stealing glances at Messi's table. She noticed how he treated everyone around him with the same kindness and respect, whether it was the other guests or the staff who served him. It was refreshing, a reminder that even the most celebrated people could still be grounded. But her moment of awe was short-lived. As she returned to the kitchen at the end of the night, her supervisor, Claudia, was waiting for her. Claudia's expression was stern, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. "Lucia," she said, her voice sharp. "What were you thinking, talking to the guests like that?" Lucia frowned, confusion knitting her brows. "He spoke to me first," she explained. "He just asked for water. I was only doing my job." "That's not your job," Claudia snapped. "Your job is to stay in the kitchen and wash dishes. Not to mingle with the guests." "I wasn't mingling," Lucia protested. "I was just—" "Enough," Claudia interrupted. "We can't have staff overstepping their boundaries. Consider this your final warning." Lucia opened her mouth to argue, but the words caught in her throat. She knew it was pointless. Claudia had always been strict, and there was no reasoning with her once she had made up her mind. Swallowing her frustration, Lucia returned to her station, the brief glow of her interaction with Messi now overshadowed by the sting of her supervisor's reprimand. The next morning, Lucia arrived at the hotel, her nerves on edge. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Her co-workers avoided her gaze, and Claudia seemed more tense than usual. As the hours passed, the atmosphere grew heavier, and Lucia's unease turned into dread. Finally, just before her shift ended, Claudia called her into the office. The moment Lucia stepped inside, she knew what was coming. "Lucia," Claudia began, her tone cold and formal. "After reviewing your conduct last night, we've decided to terminate your employment. You're no longer needed here." Lucia stared at her, disbelief washing over her. "You're firing me? For what? For bringing someone water?" "It's not just that," Claudia said, though she didn't elaborate. "You crossed a line, and we can't allow that." Tears pricked at the corners of Lucia's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She nodded stiffly, her voice tight as she said, "Fine. I'll collect my things." As she left the office, the weight of the situation hit her like a ton of bricks. She had lost her job, her only source of income, over something so trivial. The injustice of it burned, but there was nothing she could do. She walked out of the hotel for the last time, her head held high despite the turmoil inside her. But as she stepped onto the street, a familiar voice called out to her. "Lucia?" She turned, her heart skipping a beat as she saw Messi standing a few feet away. He was dressed casually, his hands in his pockets, but there was an intensity in his gaze that made her pause. "Is everything okay?" he asked, concern etched into his features. Lucia hesitated, unsure of how much to say. But the kindness in his eyes encouraged her to speak. "I just lost my job," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "Because of last night." Messi frowned, his expression hardening. "Because of me?" "No," Lucia said quickly. "Not because of you. Because I spoke to you. They thought it was unprofessional." For a moment, Messi said nothing, his jaw tightening as he processed her words. Then, without hesitation, he said, "Come with me. Let's fix this." Lucia stood frozen for a moment, unsure if she had heard Messi correctly. His words echoed in her mind, "Come with me. Let's fix this." She wanted to ask what he meant, but before she could, he motioned for her to follow him. Something about his calm confidence gave her a sliver of hope. "Come on," Messi said gently, as if sensing her hesitation. "I won't let this slide." Lucia's legs moved on their own, following him down the sidewalk. Her mind raced with questions. Why would someone like Messi care about what had happened to her? He didn't owe her anything. Yet here he was, taking time out of his life to help someone he'd only exchanged a few words with the night before. They walked in silence for a few blocks before stopping outside a sleek building with mirrored windows. Messi held the door open for her, and they stepped into a modern lobby with polished floors and soft lighting. Lucia felt out of place in her simple work clothes, but Messi didn't seem to notice or care. "Wait here for a moment," he said, motioning to a small seating area. "I just need to make a quick call." Lucia nodded, sinking into one of the plush chairs. She clasped her hands tightly in her lap, her nerves twisting into knots. From where she sat, she could see Messi pacing a few feet away, his phone pressed to his ear. His expression was serious, his tone firm but controlled. She couldn't hear what he was saying, but it was clear that he wasn't happy. After a few minutes, Messi ended the call and returned to her. "It's done," he said simply. Lucia blinked, confused. "What's done?" "I spoke to someone at the hotel," he explained. "They know what happened, and they'll be reaching out to apologize." Lucia's mouth fell open. Apologize? But why would they do that? "Because they were wrong," Messi said, his voice steady. "You didn't deserve to lose your job for doing something as simple as speaking to me. And they know that now." Lucia stared at him, her emotions a whirlwind of disbelief, gratitude, and lingering doubt. "I don't know what to say," she murmured. "Thank you doesn't feel like enough." Messi smiled, his expression softening. "You don't need to thank me. I just did what anyone should do. But if you're not comfortable going back to the hotel, I understand. Which is why I have another idea." Lucia tilted her head, her curiosity piqued. "Another idea?" "I need someone like you on my team," Messi said. "Someone who's hardworking, dedicated, and willing to go the extra mile. It's clear you have those qualities, and I think you'd be a great fit." Lucia's heart skipped a beat. You want me to work for you?" "Yes," Messi said simply. "I run a foundation that helps underprivileged kids access education and sports opportunities. We're always looking for people who care about making a difference. I think you'd be perfect for it." Lucia's mind reeled. This couldn't be real. Just hours ago, she had been fired from a job that barely paid the bills, and now one of the most famous athletes in the world was offering her a position in his foundation. It felt like a dream, one she was afraid to wake up from. "I don't know if I'm qualified," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I've only ever worked in kitchens and small jobs. I don't have experience with things like this." Messi shook his head, his gaze unwavering. "You're more than qualified. You have heart, and that's what matters most. The rest, you'll learn. I believe in you, Lucia." Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes as his words sank in. She thought about her family, about her siblings who looked up to her and relied on her. This job wouldn't just be an opportunity, it would be a chance to give them a better life, to build something she could be proud of. "I'll do it," she said finally, her voice firm. "I'll work for you. Thank you for believing in me." Messi's smile widened. "You won't regret it. Welcome to the team, Lucia." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of change. Lucia joined the foundation as an assistant, helping to organize events, coordinate outreach programs, and manage logistics. The work was challenging, but it was also deeply fulfilling. She found herself inspired by the mission of the foundation and by the lives it touched. One of her first assignments was to help plan a soccer clinic for children in a low-income neighborhood. The event was designed to give kids a chance to meet their hero, learn new skills, and feel seen and valued. Lucia threw herself into the planning, determined to make it a success. On the day of the clinic, she watched as dozens of children ran onto the field, their faces lit with excitement. Messi arrived shortly after, his presence electrifying the crowd. He spent hours with the kids, coaching them, signing autographs, and sharing stories. Lucia watched from the sidelines, her heart swelling with pride. This was what she had always wanted, to be part of something that made a difference. As the event wrapped up, Messi approached her, his expression warm. "You did an amazing job today," he said. "The kids loved it." "Thank you," Lucia said, her voice filled with emotion. "It's all because of you. None of this would be possible without you." Messi shook his head. "It's not just me. It's people like you who make this happen. You've already made such an impact, Lucia. I'm glad you're here." Lucia smiled, her heart full. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. Messi's kindness had changed her life, and now she was determined to use this new chapter to help others, just as he had helped her. And as she looked around at the smiling faces of the children on the field, she knew that this was only the beginning. Together, they could create something extraordinary, a legacy of hope and kindness that would ripple out into the world for years to come. Lucia's life began to transform in ways she could never have imagined. The weeks turned into months, and her role within Messi's foundation expanded rapidly. She wasn't just an assistant anymore, she had become a vital part of the team, someone who could be relied on to organize large-scale events and connect with the communities they served. Her confidence grew with every success, and for the first time, she began to believe in her own potential. One of the biggest projects she took on was a nationwide campaign to provide sports scholarships to underprivileged children. The program aimed to help kids who had the talent but lacked the resources to pursue their dreams. It was a cause close to Lucia's heart, and she poured everything she had into making it a success. Her days were long, filled with meetings, phone calls, and endless planning. She worked closely with schools, coaches, and local organizations to identify children who would benefit from the program. Despite the demanding schedule, she never lost sight of why she was doing it. Every child she met reminded her of her own struggles, of the times she had felt invisible and overlooked. Now, she had the chance to make sure others didn't feel the same. One evening, after a particularly long day, Lucia sat in her small apartment, going through a stack of applications for the scholarship program. Her siblings were in the next room, laughing as they played a board game. The sound brought a smile to her face. It was a reminder of how far they had come. The stress of barely making ends meet was no longer a constant presence in their lives, and she could see the difference it had made in her siblings. They were thriving, just like she had always hoped they would. As she flipped through the applications, one caught her eye. It was from a young boy named Miguel, who lived in a small town outside the city. His essay was written in shaky handwriting, but the words were powerful. He spoke about how soccer had given him hope during the hardest times in his life, how it had been his escape from the struggles of poverty. He dreamed of becoming a professional player, not just for himself but to help his family have a better life. Lucia felt a lump form in her throat as she read his words. She saw herself in Miguel, his determination, his resilience, his unwavering hope despite the odds stacked against him. She knew without a doubt that he deserved a chance. The next day, she brought Miguel's application to a meeting with Messi and the rest of the team. As they discussed the final selection of scholarship recipients, Lucia couldn't help but advocate for him passionately. "This boy is special," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "You can feel it in his words. He doesn't just want this for himself, he wants it for his family. I think he deserves a chance." Messi listened intently, his eyes thoughtful. He had always trusted Lucia's instincts, and this was no exception. After a moment, he nodded. "Let's bring him in. I'd like to meet him." When Miguel and his family were invited to the foundation's headquarters for an interview, Lucia was there to greet them. The boy was shy at first, his wide eyes taking in the grandeur of the building. But as soon as Messi walked into the room, Miguel's face lit up with a mix of awe and excitement. "Hello, Miguel," Messi said, kneeling down to the boy's level. "I've heard a lot about you." Miguel's hands fidgeted nervously, but he managed a small smile. "You have?" "Yes," Messi replied with a warm smile. "Lucia told me all about you. She said you have a lot of potential and a big heart. I wanted to meet you myself." Lucia watched as Miguel's nerves melted away, replaced by a quiet confidence. The two of them talked for a while, Messi asking him about his favorite players, his training routine, and his dreams for the future. By the end of the conversation, it was clear to everyone in the room that Miguel had earned his place in the program. When the boy and his family left that day, tears of gratitude streaming down their faces, Lucia felt a deep sense of fulfillment. This was why she worked so hard, why she had embraced this new chapter in her life. It wasn't just about organizing events or managing logistics, it was about changing lives. As the scholarship program gained momentum, Lucia found herself traveling to different cities and towns, meeting countless children whose stories inspired her. Each one reminded her of the power of opportunity, of what could happen when someone believed in you. And through it all, Messi remained a constant source of support and encouragement. He wasn't just her employer, he had become a mentor, someone who saw potential in her even when she couldn't see it in herself. One day, during a quiet moment after an event, Messi approached Lucia as she stood on the sidelines, watching a group of children play on the field. "You've done incredible work, Lucia," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. "This program wouldn't be what it is without you." Lucia turned to him, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you. But I couldn't have done any of this without you. You gave me a chance when I thought I had nothing." Messi smiled, shaking his head. "You had everything, Lucia. All you needed was someone to see it. And now, you're helping others the same way. That's what it's all about." As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the field, Lucia felt a profound sense of peace. Her journey had been anything but easy, but every struggle, every setback, had led her to this moment. She had found her purpose, and it was greater than anything she had ever imagined. And as she watched the children on the field, their laughter echoing into the evening sky, she knew that this was just the beginning. Together, she and Messi were building something that would last, a legacy of hope, kindness, and the belief that every person, no matter where they came from, deserved a chance to shine. As time went on, Lucia became a cornerstone of the foundation. Her role evolved into one of leadership, and she was soon overseeing several of the foundation's programs, including the Scholarship Initiative and a mentorship network for aspiring young athletes. Her ability to connect with people on a personal level set her apart, and it became clear that her impact on the organization went far beyond her day-to-day responsibilities. One of the most rewarding parts of Lucia's job was witnessing the transformation in the lives of the children the foundation supported. She kept in touch with many of the scholarship recipients, checking in on their progress and offering guidance whenever needed. Miguel, the boy whose application had touched her heart, was thriving in the program. His natural talent and determination had caught the attention of several coaches, and he was on track to join a professional youth soccer academy. Miguel's success became a symbol of what the foundation stood for, and Lucia often thought back to the first time she had read his essay. Knowing she had played a small part in helping him achieve his dreams filled her with an indescribable sense of pride. One afternoon, as she was reviewing plans for an upcoming event, Messi walked into her office with a bright smile on his face. "Lucia, I have some news," he said, sitting across from her. "What is it?" she asked, intrigued by the excitement in his tone. "We've been nominated for an international humanitarian award," he said. "The foundation, the programs, everything. And I want you to be there when we accept it." Lucia's jaw dropped. "An award? That's incredible. But, are you sure you want me to go? This is your foundation. You're the face of it." Messi leaned forward, his expression serious. "Lucia, this foundation wouldn't be what it is without you. You've worked harder than anyone to make these programs a success. You deserve to be there." Tears welled up in her eyes as his words sank in. "I don't know what to say. Thank you." "You don't need to thank me," Messi said with a grin. "Just start packing. We leave for Paris next week." The days leading up to the trip were a whirlwind of preparation, and Lucia found herself equal parts excited and nervous. She had never traveled outside the country before, let alone to a glamorous event in Paris. When the day finally arrived, she boarded the plane with Messi and the rest of the team, feeling a mix of disbelief and gratitude. The ceremony was held in a grand theater, its ornate interior gleaming under the bright lights of countless chandeliers. Lucia sat in the audience, dressed in a simple but elegant gown that the foundation's team had helped her pick out. As she looked around the room, she felt a wave of humility. She was surrounded by some of the most influential and inspiring people in the world, yet here she was, a girl who had once been a dishwasher, now representing a foundation that was changing lives. When it was time for Messi to accept the award, he walked onto the stage to a standing ovation. He began his speech by thanking the organizers and acknowledging the work of the foundation. But then, to Lucia's surprise, he turned his attention to her. "I want to take a moment to recognize someone very special," Messi said, his voice steady and sincere. Lucia, can you stand up, please? Lucia's face flushed as all eyes turned to her. Hesitantly, she stood, her heart pounding in her chest. This award isn't just about me or the foundation, Messi continued. It's about the people who make it all possible. And Lucia is one of those people. She has poured her heart into every project, every child we've helped, and her story is a testament to the power of resilience and kindness. I'm proud to have her on my team, and I know this is only the beginning of what she'll achieve. The room erupted into applause, and Lucia felt tears streaming down her cheeks. She had never imagined herself in a moment like this, being celebrated for her work and her journey. It was overwhelming, but it was also a reminder of how far she had come. After the ceremony, Lucia was approached by several attendees who wanted to hear more about her story. She shared her journey with them, the struggles, the setbacks, and the moment Messi had given her a second chance. Each time she spoke, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. Her story wasn't just hers anymore, it was a beacon of hope for others. Back at the hotel that night, Lucia sat by the window, looking out at the sparkling lights of Paris. Messi joined her, 2 cups of coffee in hand. He handed her one and took a seat next to her. "You were amazing tonight," he said, his tone light but sincere. Lucia smiled, wrapping her hands around the warm cup. "I still can't believe any of this is real. Sometimes I feel like I'm dreaming." Messi chuckled. "It's real, Lucia. And it's only going to get better. You've earned this." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the weight of the day settling over them. For Lucia, it was a moment of reflection, a chance to take in everything that had led her to this point. She thought about the long hours in the hotel kitchen, the fear of losing everything when she was fired, and the unexpected kindness of a man who had seen something in her when no one else had. "Thank you," she said softly, breaking the silence. "For everything." Messi looked at her, his expression warm. "You don't have to thank me, Lucia. All I did was open a door. You're the one who walked through it." As the lights of the city twinkled below, Lucia felt a sense of peace she had never known before. She knew her journey wasn't over, there were still challenges ahead, still lives to change, still dreams to chase. But for the first time, she felt ready for whatever came next. And as she looked out at the city, she made a silent promise to herself, to keep working, to keep giving back, and to never forget the power of kindness and second chances. Because if there was one thing her journey had taught her, it was that even the smallest act of compassion could change a life, and sometimes, that life could change the world.